Admiral Sarah Chen stood in her command center, watching the red warning lights flash across every screen. The message from Council Prime had arrived 30 minutes ago. She had read it 12 times, but the words still felt like ice in her chest. Humanity is no longer welcome in the Galactic Council. All support ends now. You have 48 hours to return all Council technology and leave Council space. 50 years. 50 years of serving the galaxy. 50 years of sending human soldiers to die in Council wars. 50 years of sharing Earth's resources, knowledge, and hope with species that now threw them away like garbage. The communication officer turned in his chair. Admiral, we're getting reports from all the outer colonies. Vrex ships everywhere. They're not responding to our calls. Sarah closed her eyes. The Vrex Imperium had been at war with the Council for decades. Brutal, efficient killers who took worlds like a disease takes a body. The Council had always promised to protect human space. Now those same Council ships were pulling back, leaving the colonies naked and alone. How many people? She asked. 12 million on New Geneva. 8 million on Kepler Station, 5 million on total. The officer's voice cracked. 47 million, Admiral, in the outer colonies. Sarah's hands gripped the rail in front of her. 47 million human lives. Children playing in dome cities, farmers growing food in alien soil, scientists studying new worlds. All of them about to face the Vrex alone. What about our defense fleets? The Council recalled them. 3 days ago, said they needed them for strategic repositioning. Our requests for information were denied. 3 days ago, the Council had known this was coming for 3 days and said nothing. They had pulled Earth's defenders away and left the colonies, open like a door in a storm. The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The symbol of the Galactic Council appeared, followed by the face of High Counselor Vextai. The alien's 3 eyes showed no emotion as it spoke. Admiral Chen, I trust you have received our communication regarding humanity's new status. You mean our expulsion, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. A necessary decision for galactic stability. The Vrex have agreed to cease hostilities in exchange for human territories. The mathematics are simple. 47 million human lives versus billions across the galaxy. The choice was obvious. Sarah stared at the screen. You sold us. You sold us to save yourselves. We made a practical decision. Humanity has always been too aggressive, too unpredictable. Your species challenges established order. The Vrex wanted your colonies, and frankly, many Council members believe the galaxy will be more stable without human interference. And our people? The families on those worlds? Vextai's middle eye blinked slowly. The Vrex have assured us they will treat human populations according to their customs. Sarah knew what Vrex customs meant. Slavery for the useful ones, death for the rest. She had seen the reports from their conquered worlds. The Council knew. 2. You have 48 hours to comply with our terms, Vextai continued. Return all Council technology, withdraw to your solar system, and remain there. Any attempt to interfere with Vrex operations will be considered an act of war against the entire Council. The transmission ended. Sarah stood in silence for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited. Some had tears in their eyes. Others showed the cold anger she felt burning in her own chest. Admiral, the communications officer said quietly, we're getting emergency signals from New Geneva. Put it through. The screen showed Colonel Martinez, commander of New Geneva's Defense Force. His face was covered in dust and blood. Behind him, the sky burned red. "Admiral, they're landing troops everywhere. We can't hold them. The civilians—" An explosion cut off his words. When the image cleared, he was back. "They're targeting the schools first, the hospitals. They want to break us fast." "How long can you hold?" "Maybe 6 hours. Maybe less." "Admiral, my daughter is in the primary school. She's 8 years old. Please." Another explosion. The transmission went dead. Sarah turned to her tactical officer. "How long to reach New Geneva?" 18 hours at maximum speed, Admiral, but we only have 3 ships in range. 3 ships against a Vrex invasion fleet. It would be suicide. But those were her people down there. Human children hiding in schools while monsters landed around them. "Admiral," her executive officer said carefully. The council was clear. "Any interference would be an act of war," Sarah finished, "against a council that just threw us to the wolves to save themselves." She walked to the Central Command console and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Every human ship in space would hear this. Every colony, every station, every outpost. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen speaking to all human forces. 1 hour ago, the Galactic Council expelled humanity from their alliance. They have given our colonies to the Vrex Imperium in exchange for peace. As I speak, Vrex forces are attacking our people, killing our children. The Council considers this acceptable." She paused, looking at the faces around her. Good people, brave people, people who had served the galaxy with honor and received betrayal in return. For 50 years, we believed in the Council's vision of peace. We shared our technology, our resources, our lives. We fought their wars and died for their causes. We thought we were building something together. We were wrong. Another pause. On the screens around her, she could see reports flooding in. Colony after colony going dark. Distress signals cut short. The systematic destruction of everything humanity had built among the stars. The Council has made their choice. They have shown us exactly how much human life is worth to them. Nothing. We are nothing to them. Tools to be used and thrown away. When convenient. Her voice grew harder. If they want us gone, we'll leave. All of us, every human ship, every colony, every outpost. We'll take our people and go, but we won't go quietly, and we won't go begging. She looked directly into the camera now, knowing her words would reach every human in space. We trusted them once. We gave them everything we had. They betrayed us. They will never get the chance to betray us again. Around the bridge, her crew straightened. The despair in their eyes was changing to something else, something colder and more determined. All ships are to begin immediate evacuation of human civilians from threatened colonies. We save who we can. Those we can't save. Sarah's voice caught for just a moment. Those we can't save, we remember. Every name, every face, every child. She turned to her navigation officer. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Admiral, what about the Council's deadline? The technology they want returned? Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They'll get their technology back. Every bit of it. But not the way they expect. As her ship turned toward home, Sarah looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human families were dying because the galaxy had decided their lives didn't matter. The Council thought they could use humanity and discard them when it was convenient. They would learn how wrong they were. Humanity was leaving, but they would make sure the galaxy never forgot what they had lost, what they had thrown away, what they had chosen to destroy. The stars seemed colder now, less welcoming. But that was fine. Humanity would find their own way among them. And when they did, the galaxy would understand the true cost of their betrayal. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the deepest laboratory on Earth, 2 miles beneath the Swiss mountains. Around him, machines hummed with power that made the air itself taste of metal and ozone. He had not slept in 36 hours, but his eyes were bright with the fire of discovery. 2 years had passed since the Council's betrayal. 2 years since the Vreks had taken the outer colonies. 2 years since humanity learned that trust was a luxury they could not afford. Now, in the hidden depths of Earth, they were preparing to do something the galaxy had never seen. "Dr. Webb, the Council observer is here," his assistant said. Marcus nodded. They had been expecting this visit. The Council was nervous. They should be. The door opened, and Ambassador Kithan entered. The tall, thin alien moved carefully, as if the very air around him might be dangerous. His 4 arms gestured nervously as he spoke. "Dr. Webb, the Council is concerned about the energy readings from this facility. What exactly are you building? Here?" Marcus smiled. "Freedom, Ambassador. We're building freedom." That is not an answer. The Council has a right to know what weapons humanity is developing. "Weapons?" Marcus laughed, but the sound was cold. "We're not building weapons. We're building something much more important. We're building a way out." Kithan's eyes narrowed. "Out of what?" "Out of here. Out of this reality. Out of your reach forever." The alien stepped back. "Explain." Marcus gestured to the massive machines around them. Cables thick as trees carried power between towers that reached toward the ceiling. At the center of it all, a sphere of perfect black hung in the air, held by fields that bent light around their edges. "For 50 years you taught us about space travel, about the dimensions that let ships move faster than light, about time and gravity and the forces that hold the universe together. You thought you were giving us gifts. You were, just not the gifts you intended." Marcus walked to a control panel and activated a holographic display. The image showed Earth's solar system, but wrong somehow. The planets moved in stuttering, jerky motions, as if reality itself was having trouble keeping up. "You see, Ambassador, you missed something important about humans. We don't just learn what you teach us. We improve it. We push it further. We ask questions you never thought to ask." "What questions?" "Like this one. If consciousness can observe reality, can it also change reality? And if so, what happens when you remove all the observers from a piece of space-time?" Kithan stared at the display. "That is not possible, isn't it?" Marcus touched another control and the image zoomed out. Now it showed not just Earth's system, but the space around it for dozens of light years. And that space was empty. Not empty of matter, but empty of meaning. Stars existed there. Planets orbited, but they seemed flat somehow, like pictures instead of real things. Time isn't just the 4th dimension, Ambassador. It's the dimension that gives meaning to the other 3. Past, present, future, these aren't just measurements. They're the story that consciousness tells about reality. Take away the consciousness, take away the observers, and the story stops being told. The alien's voice was barely a whisper. "What have you done?" "Nothing yet, but we're going to. Every human ship. Every station, every person, we're leaving, all of us, at the same time. And when we go, we're taking something with us that you never realized we had." "Which is?" Marcus's smile was gentle now, almost sad. "The ability to experience linear time. You see, most species in the galaxy experience time differently than humans do. You see it as a river you can swim in, moving backward and forward as you choose. You remember the future as clearly as the past. But humans? We experience time as an arrow, always forward, always in sequence, always building cause and effect, moment by moment. He gestured to the machines around them. For 2 years we've been studying this. We've learned that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it creates it. And human consciousness, with our stubborn insistence on linear causality, has been unconsciously holding the timeline together, keeping cause and effect working properly, making sure that when something happens, it happened for a reason. Kit Hand's forearms trembled. You cannot be serious. We are completely serious. Watch. Marcus activated another display. This one showed a recording from yesterday, a simple scene, a human child dropping a ball. The ball fell down, bounced 3 times and rolled to a stop. Normal physics, normal causality. Then he showed the same scene from this morning. The child dropped the ball. The ball fell up. No, it fell down and up at the same time. No, it never fell at all. It was always on the ground. The recording flickered between these possibilities, unable to decide which version was real. That child left Earth this morning, Marcus said quietly, emigrated to one of our colony ships in the outer system, and reality can't quite remember how physics is supposed to work without human minds there to insist on it. The ambassador staggered backward. This is madness. You will destroy everything. Will we? Marcus asked. Or will we finally be free? Free from councils that betray us. Free from aliens who see us as tools. Free from a galaxy that uses us and throws us away. He walked to the central sphere, the black heart of the machine. In 6 hours, every human in existence will step into machines like this one. We'll translate ourselves out of this reality and into something new. Somewhere the council can never reach us. Somewhere we can build what we choose to build without interference. But the timeline will collapse, Marcus finished. Yes, slowly at first. The areas where humans lived will start to forget their own past. Cause and effect will become negotiable. History will become uncertain. And it will spread outward from there, growing faster as it goes. Kit Han's voice was desperate now. You cannot do this. Billions will die when reality breaks down. Marcus turned to face him, and for the first time, the alien saw the depth of human pain in his eyes, the grief of betrayal, the rage of abandonment, the cold calculation of a species that had been pushed too far. Billions already died when you handed us to the Vrex. Children burned alive in schools while you signed peace treaties. Families torn apart while you calculated acceptable losses. You taught us that life has no value if it's inconvenient to the powerful. He gestured around the laboratory. This is your lesson, Ambassador, applied perfectly. We're making a practical decision. Human survival versus galactic stability. The mathematics are simple, just like you taught us. The ambassador fell to his knees. Please, there must be another way. There was, Marcus said sadly. There was a way where we stayed, where we helped hold your galaxy together, where we served and protected and built something beautiful together. You chose differently. He began walking toward his own translation chamber, a smaller version of the Great Sphere. You made it very clear that humanity has no place in your galaxy. So we're leaving, all of us. And since you never valued what we brought to the table, you won't miss what goes with us. What about the colonies? The humans who are already gone? Marcus paused at the chamber door. They're waiting for us, outside of time, outside of space, in a place we've built just for us. When the last human on Earth steps through, we'll all be together again. Every person the Vrex killed, every child who died in your betrayal. They're already there, waiting to see what we build next. The chamber door began to close. Tell the council something for me, Ambassador. Tell them we left them a gift. In 12 hours, when the timeline collapse reaches council space, they'll learn exactly how much work consciousness really does. They'll learn what it means to hold reality together by sheer force of will. The door sealed with a soft click. Kit Han knelt alone in the laboratory as the great machines powered down around him. In the distance, he could hear the sound of humanity leaving. Ships launching, stations going dark. The quiet hum of 8 billion people stepping out of reality itself. On the screens around him, warnings flashed in a dozen languages. Timeline. Instability detected. Causality errors increasing, reality coherence falling, and in the growing silence, a message began broadcasting on every frequency. The last words humanity would speak to the galaxy that had abandoned them. We told you no one would come back. We meant it. Even we can't return to what we were. Take care of what we left behind. You're going to need to learn how to do it yourselves. The machines went dark. The laboratory fell silent. Humanity was gone. Council researcher HFY floated in the observation deck of the science vessel Eternal Truth, staring at the place where Earth used to be. 5 years had passed since humanity's disappearance, and the solar system hung in space like a wound that refused to heal. Computer, show me the Sol system records from before the human departure, she said. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a vibrant yellow star surrounded by 9 planets. Orbital stations dotted the space between worlds. Traffic, lanes marked with the constant flow of ships, a living system full of activity and purpose. Now show me current scans. The display updated. The star was still there. The planets still orbited in their ancient paths. But everything else was wrong. The space between worlds felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with the absence of ships. It was as if the very concept of between had become uncertain. Computer, how many planets in the Sol system? Scanning. Unable to determine. Data is contradictory. HFY's tentacles twisted with frustration. This was the problem they faced. Everywhere humanity had once lived. Reality itself could not agree on basic facts. Sometimes the sensors showed 9 planets, sometimes 8. Once, memorably, the system had briefly contained 14 worlds that had never existed before and vanished again an hour later. Dr. HFY, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Captain Mordun entering the observation deck. The massive warrior's usual confidence was missing, replaced by the same unease they all felt in this place. Captain, what news from the probe teams? They're confused, Mordun said carefully. Team 3 landed on the 4th planet successfully. They report a dead world, no signs of human habitation. But Team 5 says the 4th planet has cities. Empty cities with no signs they were ever abandoned. And Team 7 insists there is no 4th planet at all. HFY's research organs pulsed with interest and worry. All teams are using the same scanning equipment? Identical. And Doctor, that's not the strangest part. When we tried to coordinate between teams, we found that they're not just seeing different things. They're seeing different histories. Team 3 says this system was never inhabited by humans. Team 5 has records of a great civilization that lasted 1,000 years. Team 7's computers show no records of humans ever existing. The researcher moved to her instruments, checking readings that made less sense each day. The temporal distortion is accelerating, isn't it? Yes, and spreading. The anomaly zone has grown again. It now reaches 30 light-years from Sol in all directions. Everything inside it is becoming unstable. HFY brought up a galactic map. A red zone marked the area where cause and effect no longer worked properly, where ships sent distress, calls before they encountered danger, where planets forgot their own geological history, where stars burned with light that had no source. Show me the latest reports from the edge zones. The display filled with incident reports, trade ships that arrived at their destinations before they departed, communication delays that worked backward, with replies coming before messages were sent. Space stations that existed on Monday had never been built on Tuesday and were ancient. Ruins on Wednesday. The Vrex territories are the worst affected, Morden said grimly. The worlds they took from humanity are unstable. Their conquest fleets keep arriving to invade planets they've already conquered. Their commanders receive victory reports for battles that haven't happened yet. Serves them right, HFY muttered, then immediately felt ashamed. The breakdown of causality was affecting innocent civilians, too. Vrex children who couldn't understand why their toys sometimes unbuilt themselves. Vrex farmers who planted crops that grew backward into seeds. Doctor, there's something else. The Council wants a full report on your findings. They're scared. They should be. HFY manipulated her controls, bringing up her research data. Captain, do you understand what consciousness really does? Morden's warrior training had not prepared him for this kind of discussion. It thinks? More than that, it observes. It creates meaning from chaos. When you look at a star, your mind doesn't just see light. It creates the concept of star from that light. It builds causality. It insists that the light comes from the star because the star is burning. Your consciousness takes random events and forces them into a story that makes sense. She manipulated the display, showing a simple diagram of cause and effect. Most species do this unconsciously. You see something happen, and your mind automatically creates the why behind it. But humans were different. Their consciousness was particularly good at creating linear causality. They experienced time as a strict sequence: cause, then effect, then consequence. Always in order, always building on what came before. And without them, the universe is forgetting how to tell time. HFY's voice grew heavy with the weight of discovery. Every moment requires observers to give it meaning. Every event needs conscious minds to place it in sequence with other events. Human minds were particularly good at this job. They were like temporal anchors, keeping the flow of time steady and predictable. Morden stared at the readings. How long before it reaches Council space? At current expansion rates? 2 years. Maybe less. And when it does? HFY was quiet for a long moment. Outside the observation deck, space looked normal. Stars burned with steady light. The ship moved through vacuum as ships always had. But she knew it was an illusion. Reality was only holding together through the conscious effort of the crew aboard their ship. When they left, this space would forget how physics worked. When it reaches Council space, we'll learn exactly how much work consciousness really does, she said finally. We'll find out what happens when an entire galaxy has to hold reality together by force of will instead of taking it for granted. Can we evacuate the affected zones? Evacuate to where? Captain, this isn't like a natural disaster. When the temporal collapse reaches a system, it doesn't just affect that system, it affects the history of that system. Ships that evacuated find they never had anywhere to evacuate from. Refugees arrive at relief centers that never had any reason to exist. The captain's hands gripped the observation rail. There has to be something we can do, some way to fix this. Maybe. HFY brought up another display, this one showing the energy patterns at the edge of the anomaly zone. I've been studying the border regions, places where the breakdown is just beginning, and I found something interesting. The display showed a space station at the very edge of the affected area. Half of it existed normally. The other half flickered between different versions of itself. Sometimes new, sometimes ancient, sometimes never built at all. The breakdown isn't random, she continued. It follows specific patterns. It's almost as if reality is trying to maintain stability but doesn't know how. Like a machine running without an operator. What does that mean? It means the universe wants to work properly. It just needs guidance. Conscious minds that can do what human minds did automatically. Minds that can insist on linear causality and make it stick. Morden's eyes widened. You're talking about replacing humanity? Not replacing. Substituting. If we could learn to experience time the way humans did, if we could train our consciousness to create the same kind of temporal stability they provided naturally. The Council will never agree to that. To change the fundamental way our minds work, HFY turned back to the window, looking out at the space where Earth once spun. They'll have to, because the alternative is watching reality itself dissolve into chaos. And Captain, there's one more thing. Something I haven't told anyone yet. What? I've been monitoring quantum fluctuations throughout the affected zones, and I'm detecting patterns, messages, encoded in the structure of space-time itself, left behind by humanity before they departed. Morden moved closer. What do the messages say? Instructions. Mathematical frameworks. Blueprints for consciousness modification. They knew this would happen, Captain. They knew exactly what their departure would do to the galaxy. And they left us a way to fix it. Why would they do that? After what we did to them? HFY's research. Organs pulsed with something that might have been admiration. Because despite everything, they're still human, still trying to help, still hoping we can learn to be better than we were. She touched the controls again, and the display showed one final image. A message, written in mathematical symbols that somehow conveyed meaning beyond mere numbers. We told you no one would come back. We meant it. But we also told you to take care of what we left behind. This is how. Learn to see time as we did. Learn to hold causality together through will and hope and stubborn determination. Learn to be the observers the universe needs, or watch it all fall apart. The choice is yours. It always was. Outside the ship, reality flickered once and stabilized. For now, Captain Veldtar stood on the bridge of the Council's most advanced exploration vessel, the Dimensional Seeker. Around her, the best scientists and explorers from 50 different species worked at stations that hummed with power beyond anything the galaxy had built before. Their mission was simple in words, but impossible in practice. Find humanity and bring them back before reality collapsed completely. "Status report," she called out. "We're approaching the dimensional anchor point," replied Dr. Kessestol, the expedition's chief physicist. Quantum resonance patterns suggest human passage through this region approximately 7 years ago. 7 years. That was 2 years before humanity's mass departure from normal space-time. They had been preparing for longer than anyone realized. Put it on the main screen. The view screen showed what looked like empty space, but Veltar's trained. I could see the signs. Space here was wrong. Not visibly, but fundamentally. Light moved in curves that had no cause. Gravity pulled in directions that shouldn't exist. And through it all, the faint signature of human technology. They were testing their translation methods here, said Dr. Yilmoth, the team's specialist in alternate realities. See these quantum scars? They're from multiple attempts to breach dimensional barriers. The humans were learning how to step outside of our universe entirely. Veltar nodded grimly. The past 3 years had been a nightmare of searching. Every lead humanity had left behind took them deeper into concepts that challenged everything the Council thought they knew about reality. Pocket dimensions, parallel timelines, universes where the laws of physics worked differently. And through it all, signs that humanity had not just stumbled into these places, but had learned to navigate them with growing skill. Dr. Kessetol, what about the message fragments we detected last week? The physicist manipulated his controls, and the main screen filled with equations written in mathematical languages that hurt to look at. We found them embedded in the quantum structure of a collapsed star in the Vega system. Definitely human in origin, but the mathematics... Captain, they're describing technologies that shouldn't be possible. Show me. The equations shifted and flowed, describing machines that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Consciousness transfer techniques that allowed beings to observe all possible timelines at once. Most disturbing of all, methods for stepping so far outside of normal space-time that return became impossible. They're not just hiding from us, Dr. Yilmoth said quietly. They're transforming themselves into something we can barely comprehend. But they're still human, aren't they? The question hung in the air unanswered. Over the past 3 years, the search teams had found traces of humanity in dozens of parallel universes, abandoned research stations in dimensions where time moved backward, quantum signatures in realities where consciousness and matter were the same thing, mathematical proofs written in languages that existed only in universes where math itself was alive. Captain, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission. It's strange. Strange how? It's coming from everywhere at once, and it's not being sent to us specifically. It's more like we're overhearing a conversation. Put it through. The bridge filled with static, then slowly resolved into voices. Human voices, but changed somehow. Speaking in harmonies that suggested multiple people sharing the same thoughts. The search teams are getting closer, one voice said. Should we help them? Asked another. We can't, replied a third. The very act of communication would pull us back toward linear time. We've moved too far beyond that state. But they're trying to save their reality. Their reality is breaking down because they never learned to maintain it properly. We held it together unconsciously. Now they must learn to do it consciously, or accept the consequences. Veltar stepped forward. This is Captain Veltar of the Council Exploration Fleet. We need your help. The galaxy is dying without you. The voices paused. When they resumed, there was something that might have been sadness in the harmonies. Captain Veltar, we know who you are. We've been watching your search through dimensions we can no longer fully remember. Then you know why we're here. Come back Help us fix what's broken. We can't come back. Do you understand what we are now? We exist in all possible timelines simultaneously. We observe every moment that has ever been or could ever be. We are the watchers at the edge of reality itself. To return to your single timeline would be like asking an ocean to flow through a straw. Dr. Kessetol pushed forward. But you were human once. You must remember what that was like. The laughter that followed was vast and hollow. We remember everything, Doctor. Every human who ever lived, every choice ever made, every path ever taken. We remember the universe where humanity stayed and fought the Vrex. We remember the reality where we joined different galactic civilizations. We remember timelines where Earth never developed life at all. Then you remember why you left, Veltar said. The Council's betrayal. The lives lost. Can't you forgive us? Forgiveness? The voices seemed puzzled by the concept. Captain, forgiveness requires linear time. It requires a past to forgive and a future to move toward. We exist in all moments, simultaneously. From our perspective, the betrayal is happening now, has already been forgiven, and never occurred at all. These concepts have no meaning for what we have become. The transmission began to fade. Wait, Veltar called out. If you can't return, then tell us how to fix this ourselves. The temporal collapse is accelerating. Our reality is dying. Look deeper, the voices whispered as they faded. Look in the places where your reality borders ours. We left you more than instructions, Captain. We left you hope. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Dr. Yilmoth, Veltar said finally. What did they mean? What places border their reality and ours? The scientist was already working at his console. Captain, I'm detecting massive structures at the edge of the temporal anomaly zone. They're artificial. And they're positioned at precise points around the expanding breakdown. The main screen showed a three-dimensional map of local space. Red marked the areas where causality had failed. And surrounding those areas, at mathematically precise intervals, were structures that defied classification. Part machine, part mathematics, part something that existed only in the spaces between dimensions. They're stabilizers, Dr. Kessetol breathed. Humanity built dimensional anchors. They're not just trying to fix the breakdown. They're containing it. More than that, Dr. Yilmoth added, his voice filled with wonder. Look at the power sources. These aren't running on conventional energy. They're being powered by consciousness itself. By minds that can perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. Veltar felt a chill run through her body. You mean... I mean, some of humanity didn't fully transcend. Some of them stayed behind, existing partially in our reality and partially in theirs. They're using their transformed consciousness to hold our timeline stable while we figure out how to do it ourselves. The captain stared at the display. Dozens of points of light surrounded the chaos zone, each one representing a human mind stretched across dimensions, sacrificing its transcendence to give the galaxy time to learn. How long can they maintain this? Unknown. But, Captain, there's something else. Each stabilizer is also a beacon. They're broadcasting the consciousness modification, techniques that Dr. HFY discovered, teaching other species how to experience linear time the way humans did. And if we learn, then maybe we can take over the job. Maybe we can let the remaining humans complete their transformation and finally find peace. Veltar looked around her bridge crew, representatives of 6 different species, all working together for the first time in galactic history. The crisis had done what centuries of politics never could. It had forced them to truly cooperate. "Set course for the nearest stabilizer," she ordered. "It's time we learned what humanity tried to teach us all along." As the ship turned toward the beacon, the communications officer picked up one last transmission. Faint and distant, but unmistakably human. "We're still here, Captain. We're still trying to help. We always will be. Learn quickly, learn well. And remember, the universe doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be loved." The message faded, but the hope it carried remained. The great assembly hall of Council Prime had never seen anything like this. Representatives from every species in the galaxy floated, sat, or stood in their designated areas, but for the first time in galactic history, they were not divided by politics or territorial disputes. They were united by terror. High Counselor Vextai looked out at the gathering and felt the weight of failure crushing down on her. 3 of her eyes focused on the holographic display at the center of the hall, showing the galaxy in real time. The red zones marking temporal collapse now covered 1/3 of known space. Entire star systems flickered between existence and void. Trade routes that had operated for millennia simply stopped working when cause and effect became negotiable. "The situation is beyond critical," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "The temporal cascade has reached the core worlds. Yesterday, the Altarian home system reported that their sun both existed and didn't exist, simultaneously for 6 hours. The Keth-Tul Empire has lost contact with 40% of their colonies, not because the colonies were destroyed, but because history can no longer agree that they were ever colonized." A representative from the Vrex Imperium rose to speak. Admiral Krextor, one of the few Vrex leaders who had survived the chaos in their territories. "High Counselor, my people demand to know how the Council will fix this. Our conquests in human space have become impossible to maintain. Our fleets arrive to invade worlds they've already conquered, only to find they never conquered them at all. Your people," called out Ambassador Thysiali from the Cetacean Alliance, "brought this upon themselves when they accepted human colonies as payment for peace. The breakdown began in your territories because you were occupying space that was fundamentally dependent on human consciousness to maintain stability." The Vrex Admiral's claws extended. "Are you suggesting we should have refused the Council's offer?" "I'm suggesting," Thysiali replied coldly, "that none of us understood what we were giving up when we betrayed humanity." The hall erupted in arguments. Accusations flew between species. The Altarians blamed the Vrex for triggering the cascade. The Keth-Tul blamed the Council for making the deal. The smaller species blamed everyone for putting them at risk. High Counselor Vextai activated the hall's silence field, cutting off all sound except her own voice. "Enough. Blame will not solve this crisis. We need solutions." Dr. Zixhai rose. From the Scientific Advisory Section. "High Counselor, I believe we have a solution, but it will require something the Council has never attempted before." "Speak." Zixhai manipulated her controls, and the central display changed to show the consciousness modification techniques that humanity had left behind. For the past 2 years, teams across the galaxy have been studying the stabilizer beacons that humanity left around the collapse zones. We now understand how they work. The display showed complex neural patterns, the way human consciousness processed time differently from other species. Humans experience time as a linear sequence, past, present, future, each building on the last. Most of our species experience time as a more fluid concept, able to perceive multiple possibilities simultaneously. But the universe seems to require linear observers to maintain causal stability. "What are you proposing?" asked the Vrex Admiral. "Consciousness modification. If we can train our minds to process time the way humans did, we can take over the job of maintaining timeline stability. But it can't be just a few individuals. It has to be a coordinated effort across multiple species." The hall fell silent. What she was suggesting was unprecedented, not just cooperation between species, but actual mental integration, sharing consciousness across the galaxy. Captain Veltar stood up in the exploration section. "High Counselor, I've seen the stabilizers firsthand. There are still humans there, holding our reality together while we learn. They're sacrificing their transcendence to give us time. We can't let that sacrifice be meaningless." "How would this work?" asked Ambassador Thaisali. Dr. Zixhai brought up new displays. "We establish consciousness networks across the galaxy. Groups of minds from different species, all trained to experience linear time, all working together to maintain causal stability in their local regions, like a vast neural network with the galaxy as its body." "The mathematics are complex," added Dr. Kestol, "but workable. Each network would need representatives from at least 5 different species to provide sufficient consciousness diversity, and the networks would need to be in constant communication to coordinate timeline maintenance." The Vrex Admiral's voice was skeptical. "You're asking us to link our minds with other species, to share thoughts, memories, experiences. My people will never agree to this." "Your people," said Captain Veltar quietly, "are already dying when reality forgets they exist. This isn't about what we want anymore. It's about survival." High Counselor Vextai studied the data. "Dr. Zixhai, what are the risks?" "Unknown," the researcher admitted. "This has never been attempted before. We could lose individual identity in the network. We could experience temporal feedback that damages consciousness itself. Or we could discover that some species' minds are simply incompatible with linear time processing. And if we don't try, the cascade will reach Council Prime within 6 months. At that point, even the core worlds will begin to forget their own history. The galactic government will collapse not because it's defeated, but because reality will be unable to maintain the concept of government itself." The hall was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, Admiral Krextor spoke. "My fleets are trapped in territories that exist and don't exist simultaneously. My soldiers are fighting battles that unhappen as they fight them. If this consciousness network can fix that, the Vrex Empire agrees to participate." One by one, other representatives stood. The Altarians, desperate to save their flickering sun. The Kethtul, wanting to reconnect with their lost colonies. The Cetacean Alliance, driven by scientific curiosity. Even the smallest species, who had the most to lose, but also the most to gain from galactic stability. "Then it's decided," High Counselor Vextai said. "We implement the temporal accord. All species will contribute minds to the consciousness networks. All species will learn to experience time as humanity did. And all species will share the burden of holding reality together." The work began immediately. Scientists from dozens of worlds collaborated on consciousness modification techniques. Engineers designed the quantum communication networks that would link minds across the galaxy. Philosophers and psychologists worked together to understand how different species could merge their thoughts without losing their individual identities. The first test network came online 3 months later. 23 individuals from 7 different species, their consciousness linked and trained to experience linear time. They were assigned a single star system on the edge of the collapse zone. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the temporal distortions in that system began to stabilize. Cause and effect reasserted themselves. The planets remembered their proper orbits. The star recalled how to burn steadily. "It's working," Dr. HFY reported to the Council. "The network is successfully maintaining timeline stability in the test region." More networks came online. Hundreds, then thousands of linked minds, all working together to hold the galaxy's timeline steady. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves sharing thoughts, memories, and dreams. The Vrex learned to appreciate Altarian poetry. The cetaceans shared their deep ocean songs with desert-dwelling Kethtul. The barriers between species began to dissolve, and slowly the red zones on the galactic map began to turn green again. The stabilization wasn't without cost. Many individuals who joined the networks found their sense of self fundamentally changed. They thought in concepts that spanned multiple species' perspectives. They experienced time not just linearly, but with the weight of cosmic responsibility. They became something new. Not quite their original species, but not quite human either. But they also became something wonderful. For the first time in galactic history, species were truly united. Not by politics or treaties, but by shared consciousness itself. On the day the last collapse zone stabilized, a message appeared simultaneously in every consciousness network across the galaxy. It came from the stabilizer beacons, from the humans who had been holding reality together while the galaxy learned. "You did it," the message said, carried in harmonies that spanned dimensions. "You learned to work together. You learned to hold time steady through will and cooperation and love. The universe is safe in your hands now." The beacons began to power down one by one. The humans who had sacrificed their transcendence to buy the galaxy time were finally free to complete their transformation. "Thank you," came one last message, fading as the final beacon went dark. "We always believed you could learn to be better than you were. Now you've proven it. Take care of what we built together. Take care of each other." High Counselor Vextai stood in her office, looking out at stars that burned steady and true. The galaxy was stable again. Different than before, bound together by consciousness networks that made war nearly impossible and cooperation natural. It wasn't the galaxy that humanity had left, but it was the galaxy that humanity had hoped they could become. She touched a control on her desk, opening a communication channel to all the consciousness networks. "This is High Counselor Vextai, speaking to all network participants. Today marks the first anniversary of the completion of the Temporal Accord. The galaxy is stable. Reality holds together through our shared will and consciousness. But let us never forget the species that made this possible." She paused, looking up at the stars. "Humanity taught us that consciousness shapes reality, that cooperation is stronger than competition, that even in betrayal and loss, hope can survive. They gave us the tools to save ourselves even after we abandoned them. In their honor, I propose that today be declared Consciousness Day throughout the galaxy, a day to remember what we learned from humanity, and to recommit ourselves to the cooperation that keeps our reality stable. Across the galaxy, in thousands of consciousness networks, billions of linked minds agreed. The motion passed unanimously, as all motions did now when beings shared thoughts as well as words. And in the quantum foam between dimensions, in spaces, that existed beyond normal time, humanity felt the galaxy's gratitude and smiled with satisfaction. They had left their reality in good hands. The galaxy had finally learned to hold itself together, not through force or politics, but through the simple human truth that consciousness shared is consciousness strengthened. And that was enough.
The stars were different out here. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the view screen of the USS Voyager as it moved through space near the Tau Ceti system. The ship's engines hummed quietly, a sound he had gotten used to after 3 years of deep space exploration. His crew of 65 humans had been away from Earth for almost 2 years, mapping new star systems and looking for signs of life. "Captain, we have something on sensors," said Lieutenant Brad Williams from his station. His voice was steady but tense. Brad was young, only 26, but he was one of the best sensor operators Morrison had ever seen. Morrison turned in his captain's chair. "What do you see, Lieutenant?" 5 ships, sir. Unknown design. They just appeared out of nowhere, like they dropped out of some kind of faster-than-light travel. Brad's fingers moved quickly over his console. "They're big. Captain, much bigger than us." The bridge fell silent. Commander Lisa Hayes, Morrison's second-in-command, stood up from her station. "Have they detected us?" "I think so, sir. They're turning toward us." Morrison felt his heart rate increase. This was what every deep space explorer both hoped for and feared. First contact with alien life. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. But do not power weapons yet. Lisa, hail them on all frequencies. Lisa Hayes moved to the communications console. Her diplomatic training had prepared her for this moment, though nothing could really prepare anyone for meeting an unknown alien species. "Attention, unknown vessels. This is Commander Lisa Hayes of the human exploration ship USS Voyager. We come in peace. Please respond." The alien ships kept coming closer. On the view screen, Morrison could now see them clearly. They were dark gray, almost black, with sharp angles and strange protrusions. Nothing like human ship design. They looked dangerous. "Still no response, Captain," Lisa reported. "Try again. Use the mathematical sequences we prepared." Engineer Samantha. Cole looked up from her station. "Captain, those ships are charging weapons." Morrison's decision time had run out. "Raise shields. Power weapons to defensive positions only. Keep trying to communicate." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Red lights flashed as the ship's defensive systems came online. Morrison could feel the vibration through his chair as massive amounts of power flowed to the shield generators. Suddenly, the alien ships fired. Blue beams of energy struck the Voyager's shields. The ship shook violently, throwing several crew members to the floor. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, the lights flickered. "Shields at 60%, yelled Brad over the noise of alarms. Morrison grabbed his comm unit. "All decks, prepare for combat. This is not a drill." "Return fire," Morrison ordered. "Aim for their weapon systems only. Do not target their main hull. We want them alive. To talk." The Voyager's weapons fired back. Bright orange beams lanced out at the alien ships. Several hits connected, but the aliens barely seemed to notice. Their shields were much stronger than human technology. "Hard to port. Evasive pattern Delta," Morrison shouted. The Voyager turned sharply, but 2 alien ships flanked them. More weapons fire struck the human vessel. This time, the shields failed. "Shields down," Brad reported. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Dr. Alan Foster's voice came over the intercom. "Medical emergency on deck 5. Multiple casualties." Morrison felt anger rising in his chest. They had tried to communicate. They had fired only defensively. And still the aliens attacked. "Target their bridge sections. Full power." The Voyager struck back harder. 1 alien ship suffered heavy damage to its forward section and fell back. But 3 more kept firing. The human ship was outgunned. "Captain, they're launching boarding pods," said Brad. On the view screen, Morrison could see small attack craft leaving the alien ships. They were heading straight for the Voyager. "Security teams to defensive positions. Tim, coordinate a fighting." Retreat pattern through the ship. Chief Security Officer Tim Brady nodded. He was an experienced combat veteran, having fought in Earth's colonial wars. "Yes, sir. We'll make them pay for every meter." Communications Officer Katie Andrews suddenly spoke up. "Captain, I'm picking up alien transmissions, trying to translate." "What are they saying?" Katie worked furiously at her console. "It's strange, sir. They keep using words that translate to honor and capture and prize. I think they're trying to take prisoners." Morrison stood up. Every human in space knew the stories. The Arcturus War, when alien raiders had captured human colonists for experiments. The victims had died screaming after weeks of torture. Never again, humanity had sworn. Never again would humans be taken alive by aliens. "Set a course for the nearest star. Maximum speed." "Sir?" asked Navigation Officer Chris Johnson. "Do it, and prepare all airlocks for decompression." Morrison turned to face his crew. "Activate Protocol 7. A shocked silence fell over the bridge. Protocol 7 was the last resort. Total ship destruction. No survivors, no prisoners. "Captain," Lisa said softly, "maybe we can still negotiate. If they want prisoners, maybe they're not all bad. Maybe they—" "No." Morrison's voice was hard. "We all know what happens to human prisoners. I will not let this crew suffer that fate." The first alien boarding pod struck the ship. Warning lights flashed as the aliens began cutting through the hull. Tim Brady left the bridge to coordinate defenses. Over the comm, they could hear weapons fire as humans and aliens clashed in the corridors. Morrison looked at his crew. These people had trusted him with their lives for 2 years. Now he was asking them to die rather than surrender. "Protocol 7 is authorized," he said quietly. 10 minutes to detonation. All hands, prepare for one last fight." The ship's corridor filled with smoke and the sound of weapons fire. Tim Brady crouched behind a corner, watching alien soldiers move through the damaged section. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their armor looked heavy and advanced. Too advanced. "Teams 3 and 4 fall back to Checkpoint Delta," Tim spoke into his comm unit. "We're not stopping them here." More explosions rocked the ship. Tim could hear his security teams fighting hard, but they were losing ground fast. The aliens moved with military precision, covering each other as they advanced through the Voyager's corridors. Back on the bridge, Morrison watched the countdown timer. 8 minutes until detonation. Lisa Hayes stood beside him, her face pale. "Jake, we should try once more to communicate," she said quietly. "Maybe explain our position. If they understand why we won't surrender." They had their chance to talk. Morrison cut her off. "They chose to attack, now we make our last stand." The bridge doors opened and Dr. Alan Foster rushed in, his medical uniform covered in blood. "Captain, sickbay is being overrun. I've got 42 wounded down there, some critical. I can't move them all." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. "Doctor, you know the protocol." "To hell with protocol. These are real people, Jake. My friends. Your crew." Alan's voice shook with emotion. "Some of them are just kids, 20 years old. They came out here to explore, not to die. They came out here knowing the risks," Morrison said, but his voice was gentler. "We all did. After Arcturus, every human in space knows what happens when aliens capture us." The lights flickered as another explosion hit the ship. Engineering Officer Samantha Cole looked up from her console. "Captain, shields are gone. Hull integrity at 40%. Life support failing on 5 decks." Morrison walked to the view screen. Through the damage and smoke, he could see the alien ship surrounding them. Boarding pods continued to attach to his ship like parasites. His crew was fighting and dying to prevent capture. "Captain, I've got more translations," Katie Andrews called from communications. "The aliens are confused. They keep asking each other why we're fighting to the death. They don't understand." Morrison turned to face the crew. "They will. A security." Alarm blared. "Bridge is being breached," came Tim's voice over the comm. "Multiple hostile contacts, Deck 2. We're falling back to the bridge itself." Morrison looked at his officers. These people had followed him to the edge of the galaxy. Now they were going to die with him, but they would die free. All crew, this is Captain Morrison. We have 7 minutes left. If you can move, get to the escape pods. Launch immediately toward the nearest star. Don't wait for others. Go now. Through the ship's monitors, he could see his crew scrambling for the pods. Some helped wounded shipmates, others stayed to cover the retreat. Every human knew that launching toward a star meant certain death, but it was better than capture. Lisa Hayes moved to her captain's side. The pods won't make it. Even if the aliens don't follow, they'll run out of life support before reaching anything. I know, Morrison said quietly, but they'll die as humans, not as alien property. An explosion near the bridge threw everyone to their sides. The ship's main lights died, replaced by emergency red lighting. Through the smoke, they could see alien soldiers cutting through the last barriers to the bridge. Morrison drew his sidearm. Around the bridge, his officers did the same. Not energy weapons like the aliens used, but old-fashioned gunpowder firearms. Reliable, simple, human. Form a defensive line, Morrison ordered. Make them pay. The aliens finally broke through. The first one through the door was met by a wall of human gunfire. It fell, its armor cracked, but more came behind it. They moved with practiced ease, returning fire with their advanced weapons. A blue energy blast struck Communications Officer Katie Andrews in the chest. She fell without a sound. Morrison felt rage building inside him. These aliens thought they could just take what they wanted. They thought humans were another species to be collected, studied, and used. They were wrong. For Earth, Morrison shouted, firing his weapon. For freedom! The bridge became a war zone. Humans and aliens fought at close range. Morrison saw Dr. Foster, a man dedicated to saving lives, firing his sidearm with grim determination. Young Brad Williams, their sensor officer, threw himself at an alien soldier, knife in hand. Through the chaos, Morrison saw the alien leader, taller than the others, with more complex armor and strange markings. The creature was looking at the human resistance with what might have been confusion or respect. Morrison pushed through the fighting toward the alien commander. As he moved, he saw the countdown timer. 4 minutes left. Enough time for the aliens to find the pods. Enough time to save some of his crew. But not enough time for the aliens to understand what they had ignored. That humans had one rule that could not be broken. A rule written in blood and sacrifice. A rule that said death was better than slavery. Morrison reached the alien commander and raised his weapon. The creature could have killed him easily with its superior technology. Instead, it tilted its head, as if trying to understand something impossible. You fight when you should surrender, the alien spoke, its voice deep and translated through small speakers in its armor. You choose death over honor. Why? Morrison smiled grimly. Because we're human, and humans don't take prisoners. We also don't become them. 3 minutes left on the timer. The alien commander's 4 eyes widened in what might have been understanding. Tim Brady wiped blood from his forehead as he led his remaining security team through the ship's ventilation system. They had abandoned the corridors to the aliens, but the Voyager was human-built, and humans knew every secret passage and maintenance tunnel. Stay quiet, he whispered to the 5 security officers with him. We hit them from angles they don't expect. Make them afraid to advance. Below them, alien soldiers moved through the ship systematically. They were good fighters, but they followed patterns, military doctrine. Tim smiled grimly. His people had learned to fight dirty during the colonial wars. No doctrine, no rules, just survival. Danny Murphy crawled through a narrow access tunnel beneath Deck 4. As the ship's chief engineer, he knew the Voyager better than anyone. In his hands, he carried a device he had built in the last 20 minutes. Jury-rigged, electromagnetic pulse generator. It wouldn't kill the aliens, but their fancy armor would stop working. He positioned the device near a major power junction. Through his earpiece, he heard the countdown timer. 2 minutes left. Danny smiled sadly. He wouldn't live to see Earth again, but maybe his little surprise would help other humans understand how to fight these invaders. On the bridge, Morrison faced the alien commander. Around them, the fighting had slowed. Most of the bridge crew was dead or wounded. The aliens had taken control of the room, but they hadn't tried to stop the countdown timer. They were watching, learning. "Your crew fights well," the alien commander said through its translator. "But you waste their lives. Surrender. We will grant them honor in captivity." Morrison laughed, a harsh sound. "Honor in captivity? That's not how humans see it. We've learned that lesson before." Through the ship's systems, he could see Tim Brady's team setting up ambushes. Danny Murphy placing his device. Maria Rodriguez in engineering, modifying the main reactor to make the explosion bigger. His crew wasn't just fighting. They were leaving lessons. "What lesson?" the alien commander asked. "That humans are not like other species you've met. We don't value our lives over our freedom. Every human knows the stories. The Arcturus colonies. Our people captured by raiders, tortured for months, experimented on. Their minds broken." Morrison's voice grew cold. "We swore an oath after that. No human will suffer that fate again. Death before dishonor. Death before capture." The alien commander seemed to consider this. Its forearms moved in what might have been confusion. "But you could live. Serve with honor, learn from us, grow stronger." "Under whose definition of honor?" Morrison shot back. "Yours? No thanks. We'll keep our freedom." An explosion shook the ship. Danny Murphy's electromagnetic device had activated. Through the monitors, Morrison could see alien soldiers suddenly unable to move, their powered armor frozen. Human security teams emerged from hiding, using the advantage. The alien commander turned to its subordinates and spoke in its own language. Morrison couldn't understand the words, but he recognized the tone. Surprise, frustration, maybe even respect. But the tide of battle hadn't really changed. The aliens recovered quickly, switching to backup systems in their armor. More boarding. Parties kept arriving. The humans were still vastly outnumbered. 1 minute to detonation, the ship's computer announced. Morrison looked at the alien commander one last time. "Tell your people about us. Tell them that humans have one rule above all others. We don't take prisoners, and we don't become them." Through his earpiece, Morrison heard Tim Brady coordinating one final assault. Maria Rodriguez announced that she had the reactor ready for maximum overload. His remaining crew was making their last stand, not just to kill aliens, but to send a message. The alien commander studied Morrison carefully. "Your species is unusual. You waste resources. Tactical disadvantage. All for what you call freedom." "It's not waste if it teaches the lesson," Morrison replied. "Your people will remember this day. They'll remember what happens when you try to capture humans. Maybe next time they'll think twice." An alarm blared. The ship's structure was failing, faster than expected. Fires burned on multiple decks. Life support was gone on half the ship. But the countdown continued. Morrison had made sure nothing could stop it. "Captain, this is Tim. We've retaken engineering. Maria's got something special prepared for our guests." Morrison smiled. Even facing death, his crew was still fighting, still teaching. "What did you do, Maria?" Morrison asked. "I've modified the explosion, sir. It won't just destroy our ship. It'll create a quantum resonance wave. Any alien ship within a light second will have their shields disrupted for about 30 seconds. Just enough time for our escape pods to get clear." The alien commander heard this through the open comm channel. Its posture shifted slightly. Respect? Wariness? Morrison couldn't tell. 30 seconds to detonation, the computer announced. "Your crew continues to surprise," the alien commander said. "They fight beyond logic, beyond survival instinct for an idea, for freedom." "Now you're beginning to understand," Morrison said. "Humans are different. We'll die for our beliefs. We'll kill for them too. Remember that when you meet the next human ship. We don't take prisoners, and we've perfected the art of taking our enemies with us." Through the ship's monitors, Morrison watched his crew fighting their final battles. Young Brad Williams, wounded but still firing his weapon. Dr. Foster, tending to alien wounded between gunfights. Tim Brady, leading charges through corridors filled with smoke and death. They were all going to die, but they were dying on their own terms. Free. Human. Unbroken. The alien commander raised one of its 4 arms. Its soldiers began retreating. It looked at Morrison one last time. "We will remember." "Good," Morrison said. "Make sure you do." 10 seconds to detonation, the computer announced. 5 seconds. The alien soldiers moved with sudden urgency, their retreat becoming almost panic. But their commander remained, facing Morrison as the final moments ticked away. The bridge was a mess of broken equipment and scattered bodies, human and alien alike. "Your quantum weapon," the alien commander said quickly. "It will harm our ships, kill many of my crew. You could have escaped instead." Morrison nodded. "We could have. But you need to understand. This isn't just about our survival. It's about every human who comes after us. They need to know you can't take us. They need to learn the cost." 3 seconds. Through the ship's damaged communication system, a new voice suddenly came through. Strong. Female. Authority in every word. "This is Admiral Grace Williams of the human fleet. All alien vessels cease fire immediately. This attack on our exploration ship is an act of war." Morrison's eyes widened. Fleet? How could the human fleet be here? They were light years from any human military presence. He looked at the alien commander and saw the same confusion. 1 second. Morrison lunged for the control panel, his finger hitting the abort code just as the countdown reached 0. The detonation sequence shut down with a soft beep. The sudden silence felt wrong after so much chaos. "All human vessels, this is Captain Morrison. Did you really think I'd detonate while our fleet arrives?" It was a bluff. The biggest bluff of Morrison's life. There was no fleet. At least none that he knew about. But something in the alien commander's reaction told him this might work. The alien leader spoke rapidly in its own language. Through his damaged equipment, Morrison could pick up other alien voices responding. Confusion, questions, orders. "Stand down," the alien commander finally said to its forces. "All units, return to boarding positions. Do not advance. Do not fire." The fighting throughout the ship slowed, then stopped. Human and alien forces remained in position but lowered their weapons slightly. Morrison couldn't believe it was working. "Captain Morrison," came Grace Williams's voice again through the comms. "Maintain your current position. Our ships are moving to engage. Did you really have to cut this so close?" Morrison was beginning to understand what was happening. Someone out there was playing along with his desperate bluff. But who? "Admiral Williams," Morrison replied, keeping his voice steady. "We were following Protocol 7 as instructed. The Zephyrite attacked without warning." "Zephyrite?" The alien commander turned to Morrison. "How do you know our designation?" Before Morrison could answer, another human voice came through the comms. This time, a man with a slight accent. "Captain Morrison, this is Commander Paul Henderson of Human Intelligence. We've been monitoring first contact situations. The Zephyrite Empire has been expanding aggressively. Your situation triggered our emergency response." Morrison knew Paul Henderson, his science officer. How was Paul's voice coming through as a fleet commander? Then it hit him. Katie Andrews. Before she died, she had been working on something, some kind of delayed communication protocol, a final gift from his communications officer. The alien commander was now speaking urgently with its own ship. Morrison could see doubt in its posture. The creature was reevaluating everything that had just happened. "Admiral," Morrison said, playing along fully now, "the Zephyrite expressed surprise at our willingness to die rather than surrender. They seemed unprepared for human resistance doctrine." "Understood, Captain. Their intel on human psychology seems incomplete. Zephyrite Command, this is Admiral Williams. Your attack on our exploration vessel will be considered an unprovoked act of war, unless you withdraw immediately." The alien commander turned back to Morrison. "Your fleet, where are they? Our sensors show no human vessels beyond your exploration ship." Morrison smiled grimly. "Did you really think we'd send ships deep into unknown space without backup?" Human military doctrine requires stealth contingency plans for all exploration missions. It was all lies, but confident lies. The alien commander's forearms moved in what Morrison now recognized as their equivalent of nervous gestures. But you were willing to die, to destroy your ship. Why continue the charade if rescue was coming? Because, Morrison said carefully, we had to know. We had to see if you would respect our choice to die free. Now we know you prefer capturing prisoners to all else. That information is valuable to our survival strategies. The alien commander seemed to process this. Around the bridge, the remaining human crew members were picking up on Morrison's strategy. They maintained defensive positions but with slightly more confidence. Zephyrite Command, Admiral Williams's voice continued. We require immediate communication. Your actions today may determine the future relationship between our species. To Morrison's amazement, another alien voice responded, different from the boarding commander, older sounding, more authoritative. Human fleet, this is Admiral Threxazor of the Zephyrite Expansion Force. We were not aware humans possessed such dedication to individual liberty. Our intelligence reports indicated you were similar to other prey species we have encountered. Prey species? Morrison couldn't help but laugh. Admiral Threxazor, you've made a significant miscalculation. Humans are apex predators. We don't become anyone's prey. That's what we've been trying to tell you. The bridge fell silent as both sides considered the situation. Morrison knew his bluff would be discovered eventually, but every minute of delay helped. Perhaps some of his crew would actually survive in the escape pods. Perhaps this conversation could prevent future human deaths. Admiral Threxazor, the human fleet voice continued. Captain Morrison's actions today demonstrate standard human military doctrine. Destruction rather than capture. Death rather than slavery. This is not negotiable. This is not cultural preference. This is absolute human law. Morrison saw understanding finally dawn on the alien commander's face. Or what he assumed was its face. The creature's posture shifted from aggressive to something that might have been respect. I see, Admiral Threxazor replied slowly. In our culture, capture brings honor to both victor and defeated. We have never encountered a species that chooses extinction over subjugation. Now you have, Morrison said quietly. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Admiral Threxazor's ship was massive. Morrison stood in its main conference chamber, surrounded by aliens who towered over him. His uniform was torn and blood-stained, but he stood straight. Dignity mattered in moments like these. The alien admiral sat at the head of a curved table made of some unknown material. Its forearms moved gracefully as it spoke. Captain Morrison, our initial meeting was unfortunate. We acted on incomplete information. Morrison nodded. We both did. You thought humans were like other species you've conquered. We thought you were like the aliens who attacked our colonies. The Arcturus raids, Threxazor acknowledged. Different species, different culture, but we understand why you would be cautious. Through the viewport, Morrison could see both fleets, the Zephyrite warships and what appeared to be human vessels. But Morrison knew the truth. Those weren't real human ships. His bridge crew, following Katie Andrews' emergency protocols, had created false sensor signatures. The aliens' own technology was being used to project phantom ships. The deception had held for 3 hours now, long enough for both sides to stand down, long enough for actual communication to begin. Admiral, Morrison said carefully, my crew died believing in something simple. Freedom or death, no middle ground. We see that now, Threxazor replied. In Zephyrite culture, capture is honorable. It shows strength to take prisoners, shows wisdom to accept subjugation when outmatched. Your species inverts this completely. Morrison walked to the viewport. The Voyager hung there, damaged but intact. His people were still aboard, the living and the dead. We've learned hard lessons about captivity. Maybe you can learn from our experience without repeating it. Behind him, he heard movement. The boarding commander who had led the attack stood nearby. The alien's armor was now clean, repaired. Captain Morrison, the commander said through its translator. Your crew. They fought knowing they would die. Not for victory, not for escape, for principle alone. This is unknown to us. Morrison turned to face both aliens. It's what makes us human. We're not smarter than you, not stronger, not more advanced, but we value individual choice above everything else, even above survival. Even above the survival of your species? Threxazor asked. That's the paradox, Morrison replied. By valuing individual freedom so highly, we strengthen our species. Every human knows they will never be abandoned to captivity, never left to suffer alone. That knowledge makes us fight harder, stand together more strongly. The conference chamber door opened. Dr. Alan Foster entered, no longer wearing his blood-stained uniform, but simple medical scrubs. Behind him came several Zephyrite medical personnel. Captain, Admiral, Foster addressed both leaders. We've been treating wounded from both species. Human and Zephyrite physiology is remarkably similar in some ways. Our medicines work on them. Theirs work on us. This surprised Morrison. You've been working together? When people are bleeding, politics doesn't matter, Foster said simply. Your crew, sir, has been helping our former enemies. Tim Brady has been showing their engineers how we modified our systems. Maria Rodriguez is comparing power core designs with their chief scientist. Threxazor seemed pleased by this. Dr. Foster, your people continue to surprise us. First you fight to the death. Then you aid our wounded. There is no logical consistency. Foster smiled. That's humans for you. We're complicated. We'll kill you to prevent capture. Then we'll risk our lives to save you after the fighting stops. Morrison felt something shift in the room. Understanding, perhaps. Or the beginning of it. Admiral Threxazor, Morrison said, slowly, what if we propose something different? Instead of conquest or subjugation, what about mutual respect? Elaborate. Your culture values strength and honor. Our culture values freedom and individual choice. What if we establish a relationship based on those shared values rather than traditional conquest? Threxazor's forearms moved in complex patterns. Morrison was beginning to understand this was how they communicated emotion. You suggest alliance? I suggest dialogue, trade, cultural exchange, competition that doesn't end in death. The boarding. Commander stepped forward. Admiral, they're escape pods. We found them heading toward a star. Certain death. But the humans inside were singing. Battle songs. Victory chants. They were celebrating their freedom, even as they flew toward destruction. This detail affected Threxazor visibly. The alien leader was quiet for long moments. Captain Morrison, in our empire's history we have conquered 27 species. None chose extinction. None celebrated death. None threatened mutual destruction to avoid capture. And now you've met the 28th species, Morrison replied. The exception to your rule. The ones who taught you that some things cannot be taken, only given freely. Threxazor stood, its full height impressive. Human Morrison, I propose a new precedent. The first species to teach Zephyrite rather than submit to them. Will your ghost fleet support this arrangement? Morrison had to make a choice. Continue the deception or reveal the truth. He chose honesty. Admiral, there is no fleet. My communications officer, before she died, programmed our systems to create phantom signatures, to give us time to communicate rather than die. The chamber fell silent. Morrison waited for rage, for betrayal, for the fighting to resume. Instead, Threxazor began, what could only be described as laughter, a deep resonant sound that filled the chamber. Brilliant, the Admiral said finally. Even in deception you maintain your principle. You bluffed to achieve communication, not conquest, to create dialogue, not dominance. Morrison allowed himself to smile. Does this change your proposition? It reinforces it, Threxazor replied. A species that creates non-existent fleets to save their people rather than capture their enemies. A species that values freedom so highly they will die for it, but will heal their enemies in peace. The Zephyrite Empire has much to learn from humans. The boarding commander removed its helmet, revealing a complex face with multiple eyes and intricate patterns. Captain Morrison, we will remember this encounter. How humans taught the Zephyrite about freedom, how you chose death before dishonor, how you bluffed us into dialogue. Morrison extended his hand toward the alien. After a moment of confusion, the creature extended one of its 4 hands in return. Human and alien shook hands for the first time. To new understandings, Morrison said. To the species that taught us to value choice, Threxazor replied. And to the day humans showed the universe that some prices are too high to pay. Through the viewport, Morrison watched his damaged ship. His crew was alive. They had sent their message. The aliens had learned their lesson. No species in the galaxy would ever again underestimate the price of human freedom.